The BUNNYMAN, Easter eggs, and stigmata, oh my. Before we get into the urban legend of the BUNNYMAN, I wanted to briefly discuss a few Easter traditions and break them down. First, if you're not of Christian background, this will still be interesting to you. And I think you'll find, whether you're Christian or not, that most people don't know the significance of most of what I will share with you. I've always heard so many people talk about, why do we color eggs on Easter? That has nothing to do with Jesus. Or, why are there bunnies everywhere for Easter? Well, I'll tell you why. Eggs, both empty and colored, have a direct correlation with Jesus and Easter. The empty eggs signify the tomb that was empty after Jesus was resurrected, and the color eggs represent the blood that was spilled by Jesus when he was nailed to the cross. And rabbits, because they procreated so often, were thought to have both male and female parts within themselves, and therefore resulting in virgin births, which directly relates to Jesus, whose mother Mary was said to have been a virgin, who was gifted Jesus directly into her womb and therefore gave birth as a virgin, and also becoming the mother of the Christian Messiah. I am, of course, summarizing a great deal of information which is everywhere on the internet, should you choose to inform yourself further. Jesus spent his entire 33 years of life teaching people to treat others with kindness and respect, which of course became hated, and he was then hunted down and nailed to a cross. This part is significant, as it is what is called the stigmata. Over time, many people have reported to have received the markings of the stigmata, and as a result, have either been deemed blessed or possessed. And if you would like to delve into that creepy part, there are plenty of stories out there about that, and there's even a movie called Stigmata that will scare you and educate you at the same time. Jesus was then left on the cross to die, which was also used as a form of terror to make others fall into line and serve the interests of those who sought to destroy the teaching of Jesus and his belief system. After he passed from his wounds, he was then placed into a tomb, and 3 days later, when his believers went to see if he was there, he was gone. And it is believed that he then ascended to the heavens to be with his Father, God, to watch over us, as he died for our sins so we may be saved from ourselves. This solidified the tradition of Easter, but there's something else significant to be discussed as well. It is believed that after Jesus was placed into the tomb, he wrote his last words on the wall, and those last words are hidden in scrolls in non-disclosed locations, because if certain churches were to get hold of them, they would destroy them. But why? Why would anyone want to do that? Because most churches are based on the guilt and fear to attend their places of worship and to follow a specific protocol set forth by said church. But in Jesus' last words, he set everyone free from that mindset. It is believed that if people were to know the true words of Jesus, it would destroy organized religion as we know it. If you Google it, you can find excerpts or possibly all of his hidden words. But one specific set of words have stuck with me for years, as someone who was threatened and guilted into attending church my entire life. You will not find me in buildings of brick and stone. Split a piece of wood and you will find me. Lift a rock, and I am there. Now let's just jump right into it. I really hope Phil DeFranco doesn't have that copyrighted. Unlike many urban legends, the BUNNYMAN definitely has a basis in actual events. In 1970, a couple was driving and parked near a train overpass bridge for a moment to get their bearings. And as they did this, a mysterious and threatening figure appeared out of nowhere. This figure, according to the police report, yelled and drove the couple away with threats of violence. When the police report was written, the couple said that they didn't get a very good look at the person who threatened them. They said that he was dressed in a white or light clothing and that he might have had something on his head. Over the next few days, weeks, months, and years, this report became interpreted as their attacker having rabbit ears, and this is where the whole story begins. Everything beyond this point is a mixture of truth and myth, but that doesn't make it any less interesting or scary. A more in-depth look at the first time people became aware of the BUNNYMAN. One night in October of 1970, Air Force Academy cadet Robert Bennett was driving with his fiancée in Northern Virginia. The pair stopped on the 5400 block of Guinea Road in Fairfax, a location near his uncle's house. They were sitting in the car when things started to get weird. A man dressed in white, supposedly with bunny ears, approached out of the darkness. He began to scream at the couple that they were on private property and that he was going to report them to the police, and that he'd gotten their license plate number. This would have been merely off-putting, with the exception of what he did next. All of a sudden, the man hurled a hatchet right through the windshield of the car, nearly hitting the couple. As you might guess, they quickly sped off to a police station, hatchet still in the car. Bennett recalls helping pull bits of broken glass out of his date's hair as they explained to the police what happened. The police later began looking for a man in a bunny outfit, although at the time, they couldn't find anyone suspicious in the area. The BUNNYMAN legend was solidified. Another police report 10 days later, right around Halloween. A construction company near the area became the BUNNYMAN's new stomping grounds. A security guard named Paul Phillips was on duty when he came across a man dressed in black and gray with bunny ears, similar to the initial report from the couple. He was vandalizing a house, and when Phillips approached, the oddly dressed man is reported to have said, "All you people trespass around here. If you don't get out of here, I'm going to bust you in the head." This man seemed to really have issues with people trespassing, even if he was the one destroying other people's property. Again, when the police went looking for him, they didn't turn up much. But once that story hit the papers, the floodgates opened. Fairfax County Police got over 50 reports from people who claimed to see the BUNNYMAN, some more credible than others. Whether this was in the spirit of Halloween or legitimate, it's impossible to say. But who exactly is the BUNNYMAN? That's where all the accounts seem to really differ. One of the most common legends of the BUNNYMAN is that he's the spirit of a crazy man who escaped from an asylum back in 1904. A group of criminally insane people were being transported by bus to a new facility. The bus unexpectedly crashed, and everyone inside was killed, except for one man. This man escaped, vanishing into the night, and he was never seen again. His name was Douglas Griffin, and his memory lived on long after his escape. He began to kill people and animals, mostly rabbits, but he was never recaptured, and his ghost supposedly is what attacked the couple that October night. Of course, 1904 is a little early for buses to be common in transporting asylum inmates, and there were no asylums in the area in 1904. But this is still the story that persists most often. In some versions of the urban legend, the story doesn't just stop with him escaping and never being seen again. After the body of a man Griffin allegedly killed was found, police decided it was time to bring him in. They searched the train tracks by the bridge near Fairfax Station and quickly came across the BUNNYMAN near where the asylum bus had originally crashed. They began to chase him, but soon heard the sound of an oncoming train and had to get out of its way. Rather than running from the train, however, Griffin put himself directly in its path, and as the train struck him, all the police watched. He let out a burst of devilish laughter. Although his body was never recovered, the police assumed he was killed by the train. That makes the bridge his final resting place, and is the reason his rabbit-clad spirit still haunts the area. If these legends are true, what besides allegedly wearing bunny ears earns the killer the moniker of the BUNNYMAN? Part of this may have to do with the reports that he began mutilating wild animals. Torn up livestock and forest creatures were supposedly found by locals as well as police, first indicating that a wild animal was on the loose. However, after weeks passed, the kill count continued to rise. with the majority of the bodies being rabbits. It became obvious that Griffin was feeding off of live, raw rabbits in order to survive while evading the police. He was also dismembering them, as if enjoying the act of killing. These mutilated rabbits, more than strange rabbit-like attire and costume ears, became the reason he was known as the Bunnyman. In some legends, the spirit, or perhaps somehow living Griffin, didn't stop with killing one person or just a few animals, even after his run-in with the train. On Halloween night in 1905, a tale goes that a bunch of kids went to the bridge to drink and enjoy the holiday. By morning, they were found dead, their throats slashed, their abdomens gutted, and their bodies hanged from the bridge for passing cars to see. Their killer was said to have never been caught. This type of murder happened again in 1906, and the one girl who was said to have witnessed the crime was tried and convicted for the murders. This trend persisted, with mutilated teens being hung from the bridge every decade or so until 1973. There is a distinct lack of evidence that these murders actually happened, however, but in stories, they're attributed to the dastardly Bunnyman. Even now, his legend lives on. According to local lore, you can still see the spirit of both the victims and the Bunnyman at the bridge, specifically on Halloween night. If you go there on October 31st, believers say you'll find a group of kids near the bridge, having a good time the way they supposedly did in life. They all leave a few minutes before midnight, vacating before a more sinister spirit appears. Then, right before midnight, you'll see rabbits near the bridge, again signaling his coming. Then a light, perhaps from a train that struck him down, will appear above the bridge, followed by the figure of the Bunnyman himself. At midnight exactly, he will appear under the bridge, and his soul will glow brightly, blinding you. If you don't run at this point, he may kill you, slashing and eviscerating you the same way he did his victims in decades past. Interestingly enough, the Bennets are happy enough to corroborate the hatchet-throwing portion of the legend as very much true. Robert Bennett and his now wife have answered many questions about their run-in with the Bunnyman over the years, and they still even have a piece of evidence to prove his existence: the hatchet itself. After they filed a police report, they were able to keep the hatchet as a dark souvenir, a reminder of what they lived through. Friends of the Bennets had the hatchet mounted on a wooden plaque. There's even an inscription that reads, "Our hair-raising experience, 1969. The year written may be 1 year off according to the police reports, but the Bennets still claim this is the same axe that nearly did them grave harm. At least they have a sense of humor about it instead of recurring nightmares of being decapitated. Unfortunately, the popularity of the Bunnyman myth has made it a hotspot for paranormal investigators and curious kids. This is problematic, since the train tracks above the bridge are still live, and the bridge is so narrow that it's difficult to move out of the way if a car were to come. This can lead to injuries and even deaths, even if they aren't directly from the Bunnyman himself. Because of this, especially around Halloween, police keep a very close watch on the bridge. They set up checkpoints on nearby roads, turning away any kids or enthusiasts who are headed to check out the bridge. This has led to suspicions and conspiracy theories, but it's really meant to keep people from being hit by cars and trains. So much so that it is illegal to trespass on the train tracks there, as posted signs confirm. So it's best to stay away, not just to avoid the possible ghost, but to also avoid the actual police. Luckily, many people have been enticed by the Bunnyman legend without having to resort to trespassing. Music artists have written odes to the urban legend, and there was even a slasher film in 2011 called Bunnyman, about his murderous ways. There are t-shirts you can buy locally that have his name or likeness on the front, and there's even a local brewery that produces a Bunnyman-themed beer. Perhaps most notably, one famous cult science fiction horror film took some inspiration from the story, Donnie Darko. The film takes place in a Virginian suburb, and while the creator, Richard Kelly, mentions the novel Watership Down as an inspiration for writing the story, Part of it is also from the Bunnyman myth. After all, Frank is a rather mysterious and sinister character, and wears a large, distressing rabbit costume. So if you see Peter Cottontail hopping down the bunny trail, you might want to inspect him a bit closer, as instead of delivering chocolates, he might bring you something else you never wanted. As for me personally, the most disturbing part of all of this is the fact that so many people eat ham on Easter. We always had tacos. Happy Easter. See you next time.